Ralston, Minister of Forests for British Columbia. I'm honored to be here on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I'm joined this morning by Bowinn Ma, Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. I'm also joined by Minister Adrian Dix, who's the Minister of Health. He will take questions on the health aspects of the Northwest Territories evacuations. There will be a number of members of staff, Cliff Chapman from the BC Wildfire Service, and a number of others who will be here to answer your questions. Today we will share an update on the current wildfire and drought situation, as well as this week's heat event. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the devastating wildfires in the Northwest Territories. This is a rapidly evolving situation. Our hearts and thoughts are with every community in the Northwest Territories who's been impacted, every person who's having to leave their home, and all the firefighters and emergency responders who are on the ground helping to keep people safe. I know Minister Ma will have more to say about the coordination with the Northwest Territories and our Western Province neighbors. Because as provinces and territories, we stand together during difficult times. While our thoughts are with the North, we must also remain vigilant here in British Columbia and be prepared for the difficult days ahead. This week, we've seen a heat wave exacerbate serious drought conditions and wildfire risks here in British Columbia. We are preparing for our own extreme fire behavior this week due to the convergence of dry lightning, strong winds, and drought conditions. There is a strong likelihood of new fire starts that will grow quickly and unpredictably in the coming days. In British Columbia, BC Wildfire Service crews are working diligently to prepare for the days ahead. They're working to secure fire guard on active wildfires, doing planned ignition operations, and ensuring that active perimeters of fires are out. We also have international personnel in place from Australia, Mexico, Brazil, and Costa Rica. We thank all those personnel who are ending their tenure here and thank them for their service, and we look forward to welcoming additional incoming firefighters from Mexico, Ontario, and Eastern Canada. The top priority is always to protect people's lives and property. Yet we know these fires can start quickly and act unpredictably in these conditions. So we are urging people to stay aware of the wildfire situation in their area, to take precautions, and to report fires when they see them. For more on the current situation and next steps, I'll now turn it over to Cliff Chapman for more specifics on the potential extreme fire conditions.
Thank you, Minister Ralston. My name is Cliff Chapman. I'm the Director of Provincial Operations for BC Wildfire Service. I'm honored to be here today on the traditional territory of Tk'emlúps District, where my family lives and where I work in Kamloops. Today, the intent of the messaging is to talk about the next 24 to 48 hours as we experience a significant weather event across BC that's forecast to begin basically as we're starting today in the north today, and then it's going to sweep down across the southern part of the central and then the southern part of the province. Before I get into the weather, I want to echo Minister Ralston's words for the Northwest Territories, as well as Hawaii and other fire agencies across North America that have been challenged with significant fire challenges this season. What's happening in the Northwest Territories is shocking with the mass evacuation, and our hearts are with the people who are leaving and trying to evacuate the Northwest Territories. And as an agency, our hearts and our thoughts are also with the responders who are staying behind, trying to protect those communities, as we've seen throughout BC for the course of the last 2 months, and we'll see for the next number of weeks ahead. Today, the messaging is really about the forecast. It is about the weather. As we know, we've been under a ridge of high pressure. That's why we have been so hot and so dry the last number of days. We've been breaking temperature records across the province, primarily in the south, but also in the central and northern parts of BC. You couple that with the extreme drought conditions that we've spoken about on these availabilities over the course of the last number of months, and the conditions out in the forest are very prime to see significant fire growth and to see new fires challenge our suppression efforts. We will see this, what we refer to in BC as a cold front, which is a cold air mass pushing up into the hot air mass that we've been living under for the last number of days. When those two things happen, it creates significant and sustained winds, likely in the 30 to 40 kilometers an hour range, with gusts up to 60 to 70 kilometers an hour. We will also see erratic winds through this event as it sweeps through the province, meaning that the wind direction will change, and what used to be a flank or the base of a fire will become the head of a fire, challenging all of the efforts that we've put in over the course of the last number of weeks to build containment lines, to use planned ignitions to secure the lines. And today and tomorrow we'll really see the success of those efforts. This cold air mass is going to start in the northern part of the province, as I said, right now. It's going to sweep through the Caribou as we approach the afternoon, and eventually making its way to the coast, the Kamloops, and the Southeast fire centers early this evening, pushing through the evening. The other significant challenge with this forecast is that it is forecast to come with lightning. As we know, lightning is our primary ignition source for new fires, has been for the predominant part of this fire season, and we are anticipating a significant number of new fires across the province of BC. And obviously, we're already dealing with a significant amount of fires already on the land base. What these winds, coupled with the dryness of the fuels, will do in the next 24 hours on our existing fires, as I said, it will challenge our control lines. We are expecting to see growth on those fires in the next 24 hours, including through the entire evening tonight into Friday morning. For new starts, what this means is we'll have the potential to see lots of new fires across BC, and those fires will challenge even our air tanker and helicopter resources and our ground resources, as we are likely to see a number of new fires happening across the province. Again, this is a significant forecasted weather event for BC. Just to conclude, and I'm happy, and I'm sure there's lots of questions, just to conclude, we have seen the devastating impacts of fires in BC over the course of this year, as well as many years in the past. We're now more recently being reminded of some of those impacts with what happened in Hawaii and what's currently happening in the Northwest Territories, inclusive of what's been happening in BC in some of our communities in BC over the course of the last 3 months. This weather event has the potential to be the most challenging 24 to 48 hours of the summer from a fire perspective. We are expecting significant growth, and we are expecting our resources to be challenged from north to south in the province over the next 48 hours. What we are doing in preparation, we have had resource utilization movement across the province. We have seen resources move, as Minister Ralston said. We also have requested additional resources, as we have been all summer. We do have more resources coming tomorrow, as well as into next week, to try to offset the potential of these new fire starts. As Minister Ma will likely discuss right after this, now, if ever there was a time to make sure you have an evacuation plan for your house and your family, it's now. If ever there was a time to make sure you had a grab and go bag, it is now. We recognize that across the province, at times, people have not adhered to evacuation orders. I want to stress, now is not the time to not adhere to evacuation orders and alerts. The weather is going to be erratic and significant. At least it is forecast to be. Please listen to your local governments and provincial officials when there is an evacuation order. We urge you to please leave. We will try to get you home as soon as we can as this weather system passes. And finally, I just want to say that I issue a thank you to British Columbians. This is going to be a significant 48 hours, but your heartfelt kindness towards our first responders, towards the thousands of people that we have out there across the province, working diligently to suppress these fires, working diligently to ensure that we don't have impacts to life and property. Your kindness is felt, and it means more than you know to the people of BC Wildfire Service and all the support agencies that are stepping up to support the response effort this year. It's going to be a challenging 48 hours for BC as it pertains to fire. But like everything, and as BC has shown time and time again, we will get through it, and we can get through it by showing respect to one another, checking in on your neighbor, and making sure that you make space for first responders to come and do what they need to do to protect your life and property. Happy to take questions, but for now, I'll put it back to Minister Ma to complete the briefing.
Thank you so much, Cliff, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today. My name is Bowinn Ma, Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, here joining you from the territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Before I begin, I too would like to acknowledge the heartbreaking situation in the Northwest Territories right now. In BC, many people are familiar with the stress that comes with wildfires, with smoke, and with the evacuation orders. To people from the Northwest Territories and throughout the North, our thoughts are with you during this difficult time. BC stands ready to help, just as other provinces have assisted us in times of need. And I want to emphasize the situation is extremely dynamic. The Northwest Territories has requested assistance from BC and Alberta with evacuating healthcare patients. And at this time, British Columbia is expected to receive approximately 55 hospital patients and care home residents, with potentially more to come. They are expected to arrive through the Vancouver Airport, and BC Emergency Health Services and Health Emergency Management British Columbia are coordinating supports for patients as they arrive through YVR. While the majority of evacuees from the territory will be going to Alberta and other Western provinces, we are also preparing to receive some evacuees as well if needed. BC stands ready to provide further assistance to the Northwest Territories. At the same time, we are not letting up on our own wildfire season here in British Columbia, and we are preparing for what may be difficult days ahead, and we're ensuring that we have the resources to support people here in BC. As of this morning, there are approximately 480 people under evacuation order in BC and over 4,900 people on evacuation alert. I want to underscore that we are very concerned about the developing wildfire situation here in BC. As Cliff has mentioned, the conditions we are expecting, dry lightning and strong shifting winds, may lead to extreme fire behavior. BC Wildfire Service crews are working diligently to secure fire guards on active wildfires, doing planned ignition operations and ensuring that active perimeters of fire are out. This expected strong winds means that wildfire can move and change direction exceptionally fast. We are urging people to stay calm, to be alert, and to be prepared. If you are placed under an evacuation order, you must leave the area immediately. I understand that it is incredibly difficult to leave your home and your community and everything that you know, the places you love, and seek comfort in during challenging times. But I want to emphasize that an evacuation order is not the time to wait and see, especially not under the conditions that are being forecasted. Please be prepared now. Have an emergency plan and a grab-and-go kit ready for you, your family, and your pets. Your First Nation or local authority will provide information on evacuation routes and evacuation reception centers where you can access emergency support services if you require it. Emergency support services, including accommodations, are available to those who do not have a place to stay if they are under evacuation. However, I do encourage people who live in high-risk areas to reach out to family and friends who may be able to provide shelter in other areas of the province. Make those arrangements now as part of your emergency plan. We are in peak tourism season and there is limited availability at hotels and motels, and we continue to assess capacity for group lodging, and we are proactively opening evacuation spaces across the province. This includes the temporary evacuee accommodations for 300 people being opened in partnership with Tecumloops to Secwepemc in the Raylay neighborhood of Kamloops. By staying with family and friends, however, you're helping fellow evacuees who may not have that option, and you are helping our emergency response teams on the ground. Now, during summer, it is quite common for communities and landowners to host music festivals and events. The hot, dry temperatures mixed with forecasted dry lightning has increased the risk of wildfires throughout much of British Columbia. At this time, I want to emphasize how important it is for event and music festival organizers to have an emergency plan in place and to work closely with First Nations and local authorities in planning their events. It is incredibly important that local authorities not be surprised by the presence of hundreds or thousands of additional visitors in their region during an emergency situation. Keeping an open channel of communication with your local authority will help emergency management personnel and wildfire personnel swiftly respond if there is an emergency and keep people safe. We saw an example of this last week when a wildfire near Princeton quickly grew and threatened nearly 1,000 participants of a music festival near Colmont. The RCMP and local fire department executed a tactical evacuation of the music festival due to the Rice Road wildfire. And while everyone in the area was safely evacuated, this underscores the importance of being prepared. And this weekend, another music festival called Music on the Mountain was planned to be held at Murray Ridge Ski Area, north of Fort St. James. As a precaution, the organizers decided to relocate the event to Fort St. James due to the nearby Great Beaver Lake fire. I know people and organizations that plan annual music festivals know the dangers that wildfires can pose to their participants, and I would like to thank them for being agile and putting people's safety as their first priority. For anyone traveling, going into the backcountry or to a remote location, please look at emergencybc.ca for possible evacuation alerts or orders in that area. Study the BC Wildfire Service app, share your travel plans with a friend or family member, and create an evacuation plan in case you are directed or asked to leave. Please visit adventuresmart.ca for more information on how to safely plan a trip into the backcountry. Before I turn it back to Minister Ralston, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the high temperatures we experienced across the province over the last several days. These high temperatures are stressful and a risk, particularly for people who are vulnerable. And I'd like to thank everyone who has taken the time to check on a loved one. Keeping in touch with friends, relatives, neighbors, particularly if they're older or vulnerable to heat, is extremely important. I also want to thank the many First Nations and local governments that took proactive steps this week by opening cooling centers to keep people safe and communicating with their residents about how they can stay safe. Incremental costs associated with establishing and running these cooling centers will be reimbursed by the province. High temperatures are becoming more common in BC due to climate change. In recent years, we have been funding communities to boost their preparation for extreme temperatures, and this week we announced yet another round of funding that will be used by local governments and First Nations to improve their knowledge of the risks associated with extreme temperatures to protect people. As a number of heat warnings have now been lifted and the weather is forecasted to slightly cool over the next several days, we now face forecasts that will have considerable impacts on wildfire. So let's continue to be alert. Let's continue to be prepared. Connect with family and friends. Make your grab-and-go kit. Your government is prepared to respond to the challenges that we may have to support you and your family. We ask you to be prepared as well. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Minister Ralston to provide an update on drought.
Great. Thank you very much, Minister Ma. As of this morning, 28 of BC's 34 water basins continue to be at level 4 or 5, and it's a scale of 0 to 5, and 5 is the highest. More watersheds are moving from level 4 up to level 5, the highest classification possible. So the drought situation is serious in British Columbia, there's no doubt about that. And the impacts of drought conditions in certain BC watersheds will be serious as well. We're closely monitoring stream and river flows and taking regulatory action as needed. Protecting water is vital for people, communities, First Nations, as well as fish and wildlife who depend upon our rivers. The drought conditions in Bassett Creek and Salmon River, both which feed into Shuswap Lake near Salmon Arm, are especially concerning. Drought conditions in these rivers are putting trout and salmon species, including the endangered Thompson River Chinook, at risk. Chinook need to migrate and return to the river for the spawning season in the coming weeks. That's why yesterday I issued a fish population protection order for both Bassett Creek and the Lower Salmon River area. That's under the Water Sustainability Act. The aim of these orders is to help restore water flow levels enough to protect the salmon run. It means that ground and surface water users in each area will no longer be able to irrigate water-intensive forage crops, including grass for hay, alfalfa, and forage corn. However, I want to stress, water will still be available for people, livestock, fruit crops, and market vegetables. We recognize the impact this has on farmers, business owners, and industrial water users. These decisions are always made as an absolute last resort because we recognize the very real impact this has had on farmers and their businesses. We have in place programs for farmers impacted by drought, such as the Federal Provincial Agri-Stability Program, which offers assistance with the cost of hay and feed, and the new Access to Feed program, which connects farmers in need of hay to those selling it. Our message to the agricultural community is this: we are taking this seriously, we have the tools in place to help now, and we will keep listening and working with you. I'd also like to note that in advance of these orders, ministry staff asked water licensees in each watershed to conserve water voluntarily. And I want to thank everyone who pulled together during this challenging time and voluntarily reduced their water use. It's because of collective efforts like that, working together as a community, that we have been able to delay these actions until now. As I said, protection orders are only taken when absolutely necessary because we know they impact farming businesses. We are continuously monitoring impacted waterways for rain and water flows, and the orders can be revoked if we see enough rain that allows the water flows to recover. As the extreme drought conditions continue, we may see similar challenges in other waterways. In advance of protection orders, ministry staff are working with people and communities on the ground to conserve water voluntarily. Again, thank you to those conserving water. It makes a difference and helps delay the need for protection orders for fish. We continue to call on everyone in British Columbia, including residential and industrial water users, to follow local water restrictions and reduce their water usage. As we head into the final few weeks of August, I know there are a lot of people traveling around the province. Visitors and campers at BC Parks are reminded to conserve water to help protect our natural resources. BC Parks has posted drought advisories on all relevant parks websites for people looking online. They also have information and posters up at parks to minimize in-park water use for both staff operational use and by visitors. Destination BC, the provincial agency, has created a new drought toolkit with suggested actions to help resorts, restaurants, and other tourism industry partners champion water conservation. The Ministry of Tourism, Arts, Culture and Sport has outreach underway to ensure the 8 provincially owned heritage attractions and the mountain resorts around the province are aware of local drought conditions and managing water use appropriately. We all have a part to play to help build a more resilient province, and these actions do make a difference. Water use restrictions are different from community to community, so we're asking people to familiarize themselves with local restrictions and follow the rules in their area. Let's commit together to be mindful of our water use. Water is a precious resource, and British Columbia is fortunate to have some of the best water in the world. Every drop counts. Let me now turn it over to Minister Ma for the question and answer part of our event today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Ralston. We now have some time for questions. And in addition to myself, Minister Ralston and Cliff Chapman, staff are also available to answer questions, including Connie Chapman, Acting Director of Water Management Branch with the Ministry of Forests, Jonathan Boyd, hydrologist with the River Forecast Center. We have Peter Brock, Executive Director with the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, Mark Raymond, Executive Director with the Agriculture Resource Division of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, Dr. David McVie, the public health physician with the BC CDC under Environmental Health Services, and of course the Honorable Adrian Dix, Minister of Health as well.
Thank you. A reminder for reporters on the phone to please press *1 to enter the queue. That's *1 to ask a question. For media in the room, please line up at the microphone provided, and please make sure to provide your full name and outlet. Media will be limited to one question and one follow-up. We're going to start in the room today. If anyone has a question, please go ahead.
Yes, hi, Catherine Zip from CBC Radio-Canada. So first of all, from what I'm understanding, we are stretched pretty thin in terms of resources right now to manage the fires around the province. And there's also fires going on in the Northwestern Territories and Hawaii. So I was wondering how you are coordinating these resources because they're asking for help. You also need help. How is this managed among yourselves, and how is it divided? And if anyone can add in French, I would really appreciate it, if you can.
Minister Dix would be very happy to provide maybe some translation in French. First off, this is a challenging time for many jurisdictions right across the world, and our hearts are absolutely with the people of the Northwest Territories. At this time, what we're being requested to provide is support in terms of evacuations. And so we have communicated with our partners in the Northwest Territories that we're able to provide approximately 1,100 spaces in the north to receive evacuations if they require it. They are working with us through Minister Dix's ministry, which he'll be able to speak to a bit more, to receive some hospital patients and care for them as well. BC continues to be very, very grateful for the wildland wildfire support that we are receiving from outside of the province, across Canada and internationally as well. I will say that with the situation in the Northwest Territories, Alberta and Saskatchewan, due to their proximity to the Northwest Territories, will be their primary go-to for support, but BC is assuring them that we will also be there if they need us. We're just a little bit further away from them physically. Cliff, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or Minister Ralston?
Mr. Ma, and I think
Go ahead, Cliff. I think you're on mute, though.
Oh.
Oh.
Am I good?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you, Minister Ma. Just from a fire resourcing perspective, I don't know that I would say that we're stretched thin. From a human resources perspective, it has been a challenge, as we have discussed for most of the summer, not just nationally, but internationally, to get resources. The way that it's managed in Canada is through the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center, which is the national body which all the fire agencies, all the territories and provinces are part of. And it's based on a scale. So if you're in a 1, that means you're not looking for any resources and you're ready to export resources to other agencies, all the way up to a 5. At this point in time, it is us and the Northwest Territories as the only 2 agencies that are in a 5. And that's how CIFC makes decisions when resources come available nationally or internationally. I think it's also worth noting that we have a significant aircraft fleet in BC at this time. We have over 130 helicopters on contract for us. We have a tanker fleet that's in excess of 30 pieces of fixed wing retardant dropping and water dropping aircraft. And so from an aerial perspective, we have as many resources as we've seen in previous bad fire seasons, and they are at the ready to respond. So we do have resource availability. It's not a lot. And obviously, if we get a significant amount of new fires, we will be stretched.
Oui, brièvement, je voudrais dire qu'on travaille, bien entendu, à fond et ensemble. Il y a un système au niveau national et toutes les provinces y contribuent. Maintenant, il y a deux juridictions, la Colombie-Britannique et les territoires du Nord-Ouest, qui sont au niveau A5, qui est le plus sévère, bien entendu. Donc, on travaille ensemble et aux questions des services de santé, par exemple, on travaille depuis une semaine avec les territoires du Nord-Ouest pour faciliter le soutien des gens qui vont venir, soit des hôpitaux, soit des maisons de soins à long terme. Et on est en train de préparer cela. On s'attend aujourd'hui ou demain à 55 gens qui vont venir et qui vont être soutenus ici. Et je pense que ça fait partie d'être un citoyen du Canada ou du monde. Quand il y a une difficulté ici, on soutient des autres viennent. Et on voit ça, que ce soit de l'Australie ou d'autres provinces. Et on donne ce soutien à d'autres juridictions aussi. Donc, il y a un effort commun dans le pays, dans le monde.
You have a follow-up?
Yes, for the follow-up, yesterday there was First Nations chief, Keith Crow, that mentioned that he didn't have enough warning nor resources when the wildfires came to his community. And I was just wondering what was not done adequately, in your opinion, in terms of communicating with this community about what, some upcoming warning or something, and what could have been done better?
Thank you. I'm familiar with Chief Keith Crow of the Lower Similkameen Band. BC Wildfire Service has worked with him. He's been out on the fire lines, and some of his earlier concerns have been, I think, satisfied. Certainly, it's very important to work with communities, and BC Wildfire Service has an exemplary record of working with local First Nations and local communities to fight the challenges that we all face in this very difficult fire season. Thank you.
For our next question, we're going to stay in the room. Please go ahead.
Hi, Kate Walker, City News. My question kind of goes with the last one, just about alert systems. I'm curious at your confidence level in our alert system here as we head into potentially chaotic 48 hours, given what happened in Hawaii and their system that wasn't as reliable for the people there.
Yeah, so British Columbia, we do have the capacity to issue broadcast intrusive alerts. Those are alerts that go to your phone. They also go to your radio stations. They go to televisions through cable TV. But it is a very useful tool for providing evacuation orders, but it is only one of the many tools that we use. We work very closely with local communities on how best to communicate with their residents. In many cases, particularly in case of an tactical evacuation order, for instance, the best way to communicate those orders to people is actually to physically go door to door. So many communities will have support from the RCMP, or search and rescue volunteers or other responders will actually go through the community door to door to pull people out of their homes. So it does depend on the community very much, but we have a significant system of communication tools available to us, whether it is through the internet, whether it's through broadcast intrusive alerts, whether it is through media, door-to-door communications. We also have the capacity to use licensed amateur radio specialists to help communicate through radio if all telecommunication systems go down. It is this process of constantly finding additional ways to ensure that we have a robust communication system to reach people where they're at. But with that, perhaps, Peter, I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to offer on this.
Director, Provincial and Regional Operations for EMCR. Just to add to that, we've provided approximately 20 broadcast intrusive alerts for wildfires this season, and we're always learning and aim to improve, but those have been very effective. Communities have reached out for that support from EMCR to ask for those alerts to be issued. to the minister's point, it's on a case-by-case basis. There's many tools to alert communities, and each individual case has to be looked at on what would be the best or most appropriate approach. So we have a good track record so far this year, and we intend to continue to work really hard at serving communities with that support if required and if requested. So that's my additional. Thank you.
No follow-up? No follow-up? Great. For our next question, we're going to head to the phones. Our first question on the phones is from Richard Zussman, Global News. Please go ahead.
Cliff, this is for you, and anyone else can weigh in. What regions are we looking at here that are under the greatest risk for the next 24 to 48 hours? As you describe it, it sounds like this is covering a huge swath of the province. So are there targeted areas that are at highest risk for what we're going to see over the next 48 hours?
Really good question. So the uniqueness of this event, and I think why I was stressing it so much in the opening, is that it is province-wide. Obviously, that's not something that we see every summer. That's not something we see every fire season. We have seen it in the past, but very, very irregular. We did see some rebounding conditions in the north, but it's not what it was when those fires were really rolling. So we likely will see some impact in the north, but I would say right now, based on the weather, the last number of weeks with the dryness of the south, we're really looking at the highest potential areas of impact start in the Caribou, so central of the province, and then will make their way into the Kamloops Fire Center and the Southeast Fire Center. So really looking at that southern half of the province being the most susceptible to this weather, but the north is not out of the woods. The north is not in the clear. So it is really provincially challenging, but to answer your question, I think the highest potential impacts are in the southern half of the province.
Richard, did you have a follow-up?
This is for Minister Dix. What will the impacts be of these patients arriving for the Northwest Territories? Walk me through what it's going to look like and what pressure could it put on our healthcare system as we're bracing here for a potentially challenging 24 to 48 hours.
Thanks for the question, Richard. We've obviously been preparing for this week with our colleagues in the Northwest Territories for a potential evacuation. At this time, we expect, as Mr. Ma has just said, about 55 patients or hospital patients or care home residents to come down. That number may increase, and when they arrive depends on the flights being organized by the Canadian Armed Forces, but it could be later today, it could be overnight to tomorrow. What we're talking about is a mix of long-term care patients, alternate level of care patients, namely patients who are assessed for long-term care but are in hospital in the Northwest Territory, about 22 of those, and 33 hospital patients. That includes pediatric patients, pre- and post-surgical patients, and so on. Staff from Vancouver Coastal, Fraser Health, and Providence Healthcare are preparing for this, have prepared for this. We've already been through the patient charts to assign people. Most of the long-term care patients will go to Mount St. Joseph's and other locations, but most of Mount St. Joseph's because of space being available at Mount St. Joseph, so we're ready for that. And the hospital patients will be triaged and assessed at our operations center at YVR as they arrived and then brought forward. BC Emergency Health Services obviously very much involved with Health Emergency Management BC in organizing patient transport at this time. Just so you understand, I mean, that is a lot of people on an individual level. It's an extraordinary trip for someone from a hospital or a care home in the Northwest Territories to come down to Vancouver, and very difficult for the staff there, challenging for the staff here, and of course mostly really challenging for the patients. So everybody at all levels is doing everything we can to support them. You'll recall in 2021 in BC, more than 300 patients were transferred to Metro Vancouver from Interior Health at that time overnight via aircraft. So this is something that unfortunately, because of extreme weather conditions, we're well prepared for. We've been working, as I say, closely with staff in the Northwest Territories, and we expect to take take on and provide supports to both care home residents and to hospital patients. I'd say right now, this week in BC, we have between 9,400 and 9,700, depending on the day, patients in acute care hospitals. So, of course, there are challenges. And we receive every week more than 10,000. We attend more than 10,000 ambulance calls. So these are numbers that we are able to absorb. These are challenging times, of course, but it goes without saying that in this country we support other jurisdictions, just as they support us when they're facing very challenging, very difficult, and really terrible circumstances.
Our next question is from Wolf Dubner, Black Press. Please go ahead. Wolf, are you there? Okay, we'll move on down the queue then. Our next question is going to go to Sydney Chisholm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, hang on. We've got Wolf back.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, this is sort of a regional. A lot of the new fires that are threatening communities are in the South Okanagan, Central Okanagan, Snoqualmie. What, if any, specific measures placed to help fight fires there, and what, if any, specific measures are in place to help help some of the people who have had to evacuate?
All right, we'll go to Cliff Chapman.
Appreciate the question. It was a little bit muffled, but I think I got the gist of it in terms of what are we doing from a response perspective to support Central and South Okanagan, where many of our fires are currently sort of exhibiting extreme fire behavior. This is something that we do not just on a daily basis, but really on an hourly basis, is really look at what's on the landscape across the province, work with the regional centers to strategically allocate resources to the highest need. Based on BSEMs, which Peter can speak to after, but based on protecting life and property, critical infrastructure, etc. So we're doing that hourly. We're doing that based on the forecast that I shared earlier, but also what's happening on the ground and what's happening with each of our fires, as we're already starting to see some fire behavior pick up in those areas that you just referenced. And so we're seeing our aircraft now going to those incidents and working amongst that complex of a number of fires that are in that Central and South Okanagan. Peter?
Yeah, thanks. Peter Brock, Executive Director, Provincial Regional Operations for EMCR. So for the question on what supports are available for potential evacuees, if I got the question right, just want to reiterate that we have reception centers throughout the region that are on standby and ready to support. So communities are well aware of the current situation, have stood up reception centers to be on standby for that potential. And just as an example, there's reception centers on standby in Kelowna, Lillooet Regional District of Okanagan, Similkameen, Regional Districts Columbia, Shuswap, and Central Okanagan as well. And that's just to ensure that we can support evacuees if required. There's also the group lodging that the minister spoke to, of course, that we have stood up and partnered with many throughout the province on. I just want to reiterate that it's really important for the public to understand that those types of options for supporting evacuees, it's for those that need it most. And so we are continuing to work hard at ensuring that we can support those evacuees that need additional supports from the potential of evacuating from wildfire, but just can't overemphasize enough the need to really follow that recommendation to stay with friends and families to ensure we don't put additional burden on the system for those that have other options. So there's lots of preparedness and planning occurring, and we just want to keep reiterating to the public to stay with friends and family, try to leave those services open to those that need it most, and know that if you are billeting or staying with friends and family, there are also per diems and supports available through emergency support services if you choose that option. So there's incentives to do that, and we just want to ensure that we continue to support anyone that we can. Thank you.
Wolf, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. 2003, 2017, those are sort of like the sort of the signature years, forgive the term, when it comes to activity in British Columbia. In retrospect, or sort of predicting already, if you wish, how would you sort of rate this year? How would you sort of contextualize this year compared to those other years when we saw the Okanagan Mountain wildfire, the 2017 event? Can you sort of contextualize? Can you sort of give the historical perspective to this year as to how difficult it has been?
Thanks very much for your question. Certainly, after 2003, the government of the day engaged former Premier Gary Filmon to prepare a report about a better fire response. After 2017, again, the former Cabinet Minister George Abbott and Chief Chapman prepared a report which gave further recommendations about how to respond to wildfire here in British Columbia. So the response is not static. The Wildfire Service has continued to learn from each season and develop better tools to respond and to keep people safe, people and property safe. So in terms of the comparisons, generally what, and I'll turn it over to Cliff shortly, but generally what we are advised is that this year is one of the most difficult fire seasons we've ever experienced, and if not the most difficult, certainly in terms of area of the province that's been burned. But each fire season, I think, holds its own challenges, and I wouldn't want to minimize the challenge that people experienced in previous fire seasons either. So, but it's a very tough fire season this year, yes. Cliff, I don't know whether you wanted to add your perspective.
Sir, and thank you for the question. I just want to start by acknowledging the loss that we've experienced in BC and BC Wildfire Service this year with the tragic passing of Zach Muse and Devin Gale over the course of this fire season. And so what I would say from that perspective is this season has felt extremely heavy for the organization, as we've also continued to see significant fire on the landscape that we continue to respond to protect BC and the communities of BC. We really, in terms of statistics, this season is going to be one of, if not the worst fire season on record in BC. Hectares burned, obviously being one of the primary statistics. I think it's worth noting, again, that many of those hectares, I think just under 1 million of the hectares that have burned, were in the Prince George Fire Center starting earlier in the year. Now we're seeing the shift to the southern part of the province while we continue to have fires in the north. So from a hectares perspective, we've already broken the record. From a number of fires perspective, I think this next 48 hours may see us pushing closer to the number of fires on the landscape record. But really, I think it's best to wait until after the season. And really, it's looking at it through different variables. Those communities that have been impacted for the course of the last 3 months, whether they're big, small, First Nation community, local government community, they feel the impacts. And to them, it probably is the worst fire season on record. So it is a challenging question to answer, but happy as the season comes to a close, when it comes to a close, to really assess the statistics and look at how this season stacks up against 2003, 2017, 2018, and 2021, which are 4 of our worst seasons on record.
For our next question, we're going to Sydney Chisholm, CFJC News Kamloops.
Hi, I'm hoping to speak with Chapman about the Noble Creek irrigation system.
Sure, that's Connie Chapman. Do you have your question?
I'm wondering about what the province is doing for that. We know that the city of Kamloops has said that they are trying to work with the province. I'm just hoping for an update there. Are you guys aware of the situation and what is being done?
Sure, we'll start with Minister Ralston, actually.
Thank you. Yes, the Noble Creek irrigation system is within the municipal boundaries of the city of Kamloops. It's to the north of the center of the city. and it really is within the jurisdiction of the City of Kamloops. There are some provincial aspects to it that the Ministry of Forests administers. So we are working with the City of Kamloops to attempt to resolve the challenges there. And I'm advised that that work is going well.
And Sydney, did you have a follow-up?
We had heard, that a lot of the problem was coming from the provincial government with riprap and things that had to be handled through the Ministry of Forests. So I'm just wondering on if we're hitting roadblocks here, is the city confused? Why is this municipal jurisdiction there?
Just to deal first with the riprap question, the province has committed to place the riprap in the way that's been discussed with the City of Kamloops. So I think that issue is resolved. These are issues that we're working through, and people of goodwill will resolve them, and that's, I think, what we have, two willing partners who will solve this issue. Thank you.
I think we're going to Connie Chapman for a follow-up. Connie, did you have something to add?
No, Minister Ralston covered it all. Thank you.
All right, for our next question, we're going to go to Rob Buffum, CTV Vancouver Island. Please go ahead.
Oh, thanks for taking my question. And it's for Cliff Chapman. I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier that this problem anticipated in the next 24 to 48 hours is a province-wide problem. I'm wondering if you can speak to whether that includes Vancouver Island and what you expect here. Do you think that there might be some significant fire issues over that time period on Vancouver Island?
Go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah, thanks for the question. With this event, there is potential to see, we will see the winds on Vancouver Island. We will potentially see lightning, although the forecast is not indicating that the island is going to get significantly hit with lightning, although I think British Columbians on the island, as well as our organization, are preparing as if it may. I'd say the longer term challenge for Vancouver Island and even the inland coast is that this is still, we're not going to see significant rain with this event. And through the weekend, there is what we call a subtropical feed coming up from the USA that is going to potentially bring strikes on Saturday and Sunday to the lower portion of the island into the mainland of Vancouver proper, as well as to the southeast and Kamloops Fire Center. So we've been focusing on the next 24 to 48 hours with the wind and lightning event. But for the island and for the southeast and Kamloops, it's also longer than that because we are anticipating that subtropical feed bringing more lightning, again with very little or no precipitation, to the southern parts of all of BC, inclusive of the island, Saturday and Sunday this weekend.
Rob, did you have a follow-up?
I do, and it's for Minister Ma as well as perhaps Mr. Chapman. I'm just wondering, I wanted to be clear, when BC's talked about, and Premier Eby tweeted about this earlier, providing whatever help we could sort of thing to us territories, given our constraints and the concerns here over the next 2 days, I wanted to confirm, is it likely at all or even on the table that we might offer firefighters there? You mentioned 130 helicopters that could be available, and I'm assuming that would be to help in the Northwest Territories. But I guess the question is, apart from accepting evacuees as well as patients, are we going to provide any firefighters now or in the coming days in the Northwest Territories, or they needed here?
I think it's important that Canadians support one another no matter where they are in the country, and different provinces will have different capacities to provide different types of support. So we're always assessing our internal capacity, our resources, what we need to keep British Columbians safe and well supported here, and establishing what it is that we can provide to other jurisdictions when they are in need. At this time, we have agreed, or we have offered some evacuation spaces if required. We are accepting some patients from them. Minister Dix had spoken about that earlier. BC is in a state of receiving out of province wildland firefighter support, and so I think it makes very little sense to be receiving outside of province support and also exporting wildland firefighter support. But maybe I'll pass it over to Cliff Chapman to see if he has any projections for where we might be headed, unless Mr. Ralston wanted to add anything further.
Thank you, Minister Ma. I think you have covered it. I think the short answer to your question is not at this time. Will we be sending response resources to Northwest Territories? We have significant fire on the landscape that we are actively working and have been actively working 24 hours a day for the last number of weeks. And our anticipation is that that is going to continue for the next couple of weeks ahead. We still do not see any rain, significant rain in the forecast. We will see a drop in temperatures with this passing cold front. So we will not see record temperatures the way we have been seeing, but we are not going to see rain. So we are going to continue to need resources in BC to continue to protect the homes and properties across the province, at least for the foreseeable number of days. Obviously, as Minister Ma covered, if our weather changes, we'll certainly look to support other agencies that have been really supporting BC for the better part of the last 3 months.
We have time for one more question. Our final question today goes to Gordon Hoekstra of Vancouver Sun. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just wondering, can you say how many firefighters are on the job right now? And I believe that you mentioned some international firefighters are leaving, and how many is that? And some more are coming back. And just give me some numbers on those kinds of things, and whether that is enough, or do you have an ask for, how many more firefighters that you need?
We're going to go over to Cliff. Do you have those numbers with you?
Just to make sure that I confirm them properly, but I will read what I have in front of me. So right now in BC, we have 3,400 people engaged in fire response across the province. That is a slight drop from last week's numbers, primarily due to the fact that a lot of our international resources have expired. Thankfully, and thank you to those countries and those agencies, they did extend them for us once or twice in some cases so that we could keep them for an additional month in some cases. But now those agencies are starting to experience their own pressure when it comes to their fire seasons. And so they've gone home, and right now it's been a little bit more challenging to get commitments from those international countries to continue to come and support BC. Saying that, we still have just under 200 Mexican firefighters in the province. We have another order in and have confirmed that order to see another additional 100 firefighters from Mexico into next week. And we have outstanding requests through CIFC for additional support resources, firefighters on the ground. Those requests have not been answered at this time, but we continue to push CIFC to see if they can free up resources, just as Northwest Territories is doing. And we are the two primary agencies across Canada right now. We have 14 Australians still in the country. We have 102 Brazilians still in the country. And we have 102 Costa Ricans still in the country. And that's in addition, and it's worth noting, to all of the contract resources that are supporting BC in this suppression effort this year. Upwards of 1,000 contractors, whether that be heavy equipment, contract firefighting, First Nation firefighting crews, and beyond, including structural fire departments from municipal fire departments. So we have seen a massive surge of support from inside of BC as well as outside of BC, and we expect that to continue for the next few weeks.
Gordon, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the West Kelowna, there's a fire just west of West Kelowna, and I know that there's a significant amount of people on evacuation alert. I think that's the bulk of the evacuation alerts right now in the province. What's the status of the situation there currently, and what this weather that's forecast in the next 48 hours, what does it mean for that fire there?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. You're right. As a result of the McDougall wildfire, we have 3 communities west of Kelowna that are on evacuation alert. That includes some properties within Central Okanagan Regional District, West Kelowna, as well as West Bank First Nations. At this time, there are approximately 4,800 properties on evacuation alert. We're working with nearby communities, in particular Kelowna, to stand up an emergency evacuation reception center just in case. That being said, BC Wildfire Service has significant resources on that fire. It is our hope that we don't have to recommend that the communities go to an evacuation order, but of course we're also asking everyone to be prepared now. And so if you are on evacuation alert in those areas, please establish your grab and go bag, your emergency kit, reach out to family and friends about potentially staying with them if they are in other safer areas of the province. And we are doing that pre-planning work to process evacuees if necessary. But Cliff, I know that you'll probably be able to speak more to the specific wildfire resources that are assigned to that fire.
Yeah, thanks for the question. For BC and for BC Wildfire Service, we have had, significant resources on this fire, the McDougall fire that's just outside of West Kelowna. That fire is estimated right now at just over 250 hectares. We are seeing extreme fire behavior on that fire as of 7 o'clock this morning. Again, it just indicates the conditions that the forests are in right now, how dry it is out there. We rarely see that type of fire behavior, pre-breakfast time in BC, and we're seeing it today, and we're going to see it continue through today. We have air tankers on that fire currently right now. I would imagine they will be flying it all day today to try to contain that fire where it is, but it is going to be a challenging fire for our organization. Suppression efforts will be tested when the winds hit this afternoon. And as Minister Ma stated, for the people who live in that area, please be ready for the evacuation alert to potentially become an order over the course of today, tomorrow, or even into the future.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you everyone for joining.